The term neoliberalism is a very curious one. First of all, it's not liberal by any means, as we've discussed, and it's not new. It was neoliberal policies, or something rather like them, that created the third world. If you go back to, say, the 18th century, the centers of the world economy were China, India, mostly, and it changed. The differences between the rich and the poor were not very great, nowhere near like today. Europe grew and developed, first England and the United States, Germany, Italy, and so on. They developed by radically violating what are now called neoliberal principles, strong states, direct intervention in the economy, and so on. India and later China were devastated, and the same is true of what we now call the third world. How? By forced imposition of market principles. And this is furthermore well known. So if you read serious economic historians, Paul Roche, for example, he simply points out protectionism and state intervention created the rich and developed societies. He doesn't call it neoliberalism, but forced liberalization pretty much created the third world.
I think that what's called neoliberalism is an attack on democracy and is an open attack on democracy. It's not secret. The goal is to minimize the state. And if you minimize the state, you're maximizing something else. What is the thing that you're maximizing? Well, private tyranny. The state is the arena within which the public has some role, at least in principle, in determining policy. In the private sector, it has no role. So the more that the public arena is minimized and private power is maximized, the less you have democracy. Now, personally, in my view, the state is an illegitimate institution, should be dismantled, but not as long as private power is there, because that's much worse. That's a system which is unaccountable to the public. And the main thrust of neoliberalism is precisely that. It's to restrict the arena within which the public can make some difference.
Mas o que o senhor propõe? O que o senhor propõe?
My suggestion is to extend the public arena, and in the classic fashion, namely, as I said before, working people should have control of the places in which they work, not private tyrants. The people of a community should have control of their community, and they should interact with one another. That increases the public sphere. If the heavy concentration of private power is eliminated, then I think moves towards dismantling the entire state system are entirely proper. But you face the world that you're in right now. Incidentally, these neoliberal moves are not moves towards establishing a market system. A private corporation is outside the market system. If you look at world trade, take, say, the United States, about half of U.S. trade is not trade at all. It's just transactions internal to a corporation run by a very visible hand, which just happen to cross borders. So half of U.S. exports to Mexico don't even enter the Mexican economy. They're just parts are being assembled in the United States, transferred to Mexico to another branch of, say, the same Ford Motor Company. It's called exports. They come back to the United States, called imports. That's not trade, that's mercantilism. And that's a huge part of world trade. It's kind of corporate mercantilism in which the market is functioning only at the margins and functioning mostly to control people. The ones who are running the world economy have protected themselves very strongly from market discipline. In fact, if you look at the top, there are some good studies by good economists of transnational corporations. And there's one major study by two British economists of the top 100 transnational corporations. Every one of them has benefited from the interventionist policies of its home government, and 20 of the 100 have been saved from complete collapse by state takeover and bailout. Over and above that, the corporation itself is out of the market system. Its internal transactions are centrally directed. These are command economies. So you have the neoliberal system is an attack, in my view, both on the market and on democracy.
Very few people are going to have the time or the energy or the commitment to carry out the constant battle that's required to get outside of, McNeil Lehrer or Dan Rather or somebody like that. The easy thing to do, you come home from work, you're tired, you had a busy day, you're not going to spend the evening carrying out a research project. So you turn on the tube, you say it's probably right. Or you look at the headlines in the paper and then you watch the sports or something. And that's basically the way the system of indoctrination works. Sure, the other stuff is there, but you're going to have to work to find it. Modern industrial civilization has developed within a certain system of convenient myths. The driving force of modern industrial civilization has been individual material gain, which is accepted as legitimate, even praiseworthy, on the grounds that private vices yield public benefits in the classic formulation. Now, it's long been understood very well that a society that is based on this principle will destroy itself in time. It can only persist with whatever suffering and injustice it entails, as long as it's possible to pretend that the destructive forces that humans create are limited, that the world is an infinite resource, and that the world is an infinite garbage can. At this stage of history, either one of two things is possible. Either the general population will take control of its own destiny and will concern itself with community interests, guided by values of solidarity and sympathy and concern for others, or alternatively, there will be no destiny for anyone to control. As long as some specialized class is in a position of authority, it is going to set policy in the special interests that it serves. But the conditions of survival, let alone justice, require rational social planning in the interests of the community as a whole, and by now that means the global community. The question is whether privileged elites should dominate mass communication and should use this power as they tell us they must, namely to impose necessary illusions, to manipulate and deceive the stupid majority and remove them from the public arena. The question in brief is whether democracy and freedom are values to be preserved or threats to be avoided. In this possibly terminal phase of human existence, democracy and freedom are more than values to be treasured. They may well be essential to survival.